Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The endpoint of all undergraduate programs the world over is a degree certifying that an individual has been able to achieve all the minimal targets set out for them for the duration of the program. But if you want to be ready for the jobs of the future, caring about earning a degree alone will not suffice. There needs to be a spark, something else, a distinguishing characteristic, or maybe even a large number of them that will help you stand out from the rest. What are such traits, how to develop them, and what are the key skills to be not just good, but the best at what you do is precisely what concerns us. And that is why I welcome you to this exciting webinar on how to productively use your 5 years at law school, which is being jointly hosted by the Faculty of Law, Manav Rachna University, in association with LSAC Global, who, as many of you might be aware, are the creators and administrators of the LSAT and LSAT India test. My name is Shobit Mohan, and I am Assistant Professor at Faculty of Law, MRU, and I will be moderator for this webinar. Many of you who are not from NCR region might not know much about Faculty of Law, and I do not blame you for that. We are a very young law school located in Aravali Hills in Surajkund, right on Delhi-Faridabad border, on the Delhi-Faridabad border, and are just into the fourth year of our operations. We offer 5-year integrated LLB honors programs and also postgraduate programs, including an LLM in commercial arbitration, which is perhaps the only one of its kind in India. MRU is foundational member of the prestigious LSAC Global Law Alliance, which is a group of 11 of India's leading private law colleges and universities. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are indeed privileged to have with us a very illustrious and diverse cast of speakers. Before I introduce them to you, let me tell you very briefly about the format for today's webinar. Our distinguished speakers will kickstart the discussion by delivering their introductory remarks. Once all the speakers have spoken, we shall have about 20 odd minutes of open forum discussions, where we shall also take questions from the audience. You are requested to use the question box on the right side of your screen to send us any questions that you might want to put to the speakers. You could do this at any point in the time during the whenever the speakers are speaking as well during the course of webinar, and not necessarily wait until the forum is open for discussion. Our very first speaker is Ms. Divya Bell. Divya read for BCL at St. Catherine's College, University of Oxford, after having taken her undergraduate law degree from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, Delhi. At Oxford, she was awarded Gabriel Moss QC BCL scholarship in addition to Law Faculty Award, owing to her excellent performance in undergraduate degree and strong proven interests in areas spanning commercial remedies, mediation and negotiation, international commercial arbitration. She is a fervent writer and has several publications under her belt. During her law school years, she has not only interned for over 16 months in top-tier law firms and clerked with Delhi High Court Judiciary, but has also been active in mooting and debating, while at the same time holding a position in the top 1% of her batch. She is currently training with Advani & Co. and regularly appears before the Supreme Court of India, the Delhi High Court, and arbitral tribunals. Our second speaker, Ms. Akangsha Kumar, is a doctoral scholar at NLU Jodhpur. She is currently on a research break, having most recently served as full-time assistant professor at Nalsar, Hyderabad, between July 2019 and June 2020. We are given to understand that she will be joining Jindal Global Law School as an assistant professor very soon. She is an alumnus of Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur, class of 2012, and secured 15 gold medals for her stellar academic performance. She then graduated from Faculty of Law, NUS, that is National University Singapore, in June 2013 with specialized masters in international and comparative law. She has previously served as assistant professor at Amity University from March of 2018 to Feb 2019, and at National University Jodhpur from July 2014 till May 2017. At NLUJ, she headed the Center for Advanced Research and Training in Arbitration Law and handled activities of the flagship journal, Indian Journal of Arbitration Law. She is currently working on completing her PhD dissertation in the area of celebrity personal rights and looking at defining the contours for a right of publicity regime in India. She's regularly teaching courses in law of IPR, which is intellectual property rights, in international trade and international commercial arbitration, and law of arbitration ADR, that is alternative dispute resolution. When not studying or in classes, she likes to engage in educating herself on and nerding over the beauty of handloom weaves and GIs in India. Our last speaker will be Mr. Abhinav Bhushan, who is the Regional Director for South Asia with ICC Arbitration and ADR and based out of Singapore. As director, Mr. Bhushan focuses on helping companies, investors, and attorneys in the region understand how they can efficiently resolve international commercial disputes by raising their awareness on ICC's dispute resolution services and its commitment to international arbitration, the procedure, and thought leadership. Prior to serving as regional director, he was also the first Indian deputy counsel at ICC Court of Arbitration, where he gained first-hand experience working on arbitrations arising out of common law jurisdictions, in particular working with parties from United Kingdom, India, Singapore, and other regions of Asia. Mr. Bhushan is a regular contributor to various publications on developments in international arbitration and Indian arbitration law. Before joining ICC, Mr. Bhushan completed his LLM at Columbia Law School and earned a certificate in Foreign and Comparative Law in 2011. He was also a member of the Columbia International Arbitration Association and a research assistant. He earned his first law degree from Government Law College, Mumbai, India in 2008. Upon graduation, he worked as associate with Mulla and Mulla and Craigie Blunt and Caro in Mumbai, India. May I now invite Ms. Divya Bell to deliver her preliminary remarks. Over to you.
Thanks, Shobit, Dr. Vahini, Ajay sir, for having me on board. I'm humbled and delighted to be here today and share my experiences from law school with you all. I truly help and I truly hope that this helps at least some of you. So today, there are four major heads that I would like to speak to you about. These are extremely candid. I am quite a young practitioner as against the two very eminent and incredible panelists that I have today. So bear with me and feel free to ask me any questions, candid or otherwise. So four things. First of all, well, there's preparation. This is the most important step in the initial stage for anything, be it law school or practice.
I guess we are having some technical difficulties. Ms. Divya is going to join us shortly.
Uh, Meanwhile, until I think Divya comes back, maybe I can share some thoughts, if that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. It's perfectly fine, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Um, so I was supposed to go last, and but I will, in order to keep the momentum going, perhaps I can share some of my thoughts, hoping that they will not overlap with what Akangsha and Divya were going to say. Uh, so the one thing that all of you will hear during your law school is to network and network and network. But perhaps nobody will tell you how to network. And I surely am not the one to tell you how to network. But perhaps what I can tell you today is how not to network. When I was a law student, I was told to network. When I went to Columbia Law School, I was told there was a very heavy emphasis on to network. And I would receive these emails to capitalize on the networking opportunities, but nobody really told me how to network. And it's been 12 years now since I've graduated as a lawyer. And the little that I've understood is not how to network, but how to not network, which is essentially, and something that I experience every day. I meet students all the time. I talk to students all the time. The one thing that I would recommend to all of you is that, of course, we are worried about our careers. Of course, we are worried about our internships, about our jobs. And what we have now started to do, I feel, is that, you meet a senior at a conference, and the thought that you all perhaps have at the back of your mind as to how to get an internship out of that person or how to get a job out of that person. My suggestion is, don't ask somebody you've met at a conference straight away for an internship. Do not also ask that person for an internship when you meet that person for the second time. You know, uh, what perhaps you might want to do is try and build a relationship, which is not easy. But we as seniors, you might call it, and we have our seniors, in order for us to hire you, we are simply not going to hire somebody just because we met somebody at the conference. Uh, your merit will always take you ahead of you attending a conference. So what I have found and what I have liked and what I did was that I would meet a senior practitioner. I would perhaps meet that senior practitioner again, and I'd write a polite email that it was lovely meeting you. You know, I'm interested in so and so things, and I would love to sort of engage more. And I have written something, and I would please have a look at what I have read, and leave it to that. Then over the course of years, right, you slowly and steadily meet that person again. And how will you do that? By capitalizing on the networking opportunities. So in addition to your school curriculum, in addition to your other events that you do, it is very important to put yourself out there and be patient. I wasn't patient when I was a student, and therefore perhaps it is somewhere wrong on my part to tell you all to be patient, but you know, patience has its virtue. Um, and the other thing that I really wanted to stress on today was the use of social media as a law student. Uh, I can't tell you how important it is to regulate your social media activity. Don't let social media use you. Please don't. In fact, use social media to your advantage. You should be the one using social media, not the other way around. Uh, you know, in the world of the Facebooks and the WhatsApps and Instagrams and LinkedIns and TikToks of the likes, it is so easy today to get lost in the sea of information that's around you. And I'm not saying don't have fun or don't send a funny GIF or a meme to somebody. Please, by all means, do that. But be very responsible on what you post on social media. You have no idea. Once you put something out there, it is never going to come back. And you'd be surprised that when I receive CVs or when my CVs were being received at the time by employers, they would do a comprehensive check on my internet identity. So if you think that you can get away by making a callous comment on the internet, you shouldn't do that as a law student. Uh, as a lawyer, you have to be very responsible what you post on social media, very, and you do not want any of this to come back and haunt you. Uh, the amount of information that's available on the internet, I don't know how many of you have actually checked the amount of time you spend on different applications on your mobile phone. I don't know how much time you all spend on your mobile phone. So I have a Samsung phone, and it actually tells me now that how much time I've spent on WhatsApp, how much time I've spent on Chrome, on LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. And I realized the other day that on an average day, I spend more than 2 hours on WhatsApp. Uh, and that's a lot of time to spend on WhatsApp. But also then I sort of rationalize in my head, I do a lot of work on my WhatsApp, etc. But be conscious of the time that you're spending on what on the internet, because the good thing is in our time, the access to information was not as readily available as it is available to all of you now. And you can literally, within a few clicks on your fingers, get access to any legal information, anything that you want. So instead of sort of just, you know, doing things or spending time on things that perhaps may not be as useful to you, if right from your first year or your second, third, fourth, fifth year, if you subconsciously, you know, or subconsciously think that I should be doing things or I should be reading things that are useful to me, and it's all available. I mean, I think you should spend more time on Bar and Bench or Legally India or you know, LinkedIn, etc., than you should be spending time reading things that are not useful to you. And what I mean to say that is that there's a lot of information on Bar and Bench. Keep yourself informed. Keep yourself updated. But that also does not mean that you read an article on bar and bench and that should be it. To the extent possible, and I do that even till data, when a judgment comes out, and especially if it's related to arbitration, I would probably go and read it. And I will think about it from my own perspective, and I'll think about what's written. This way, you also get to know who's doing what, who likes what, who's passionate about what, who are your seniors, who are relevant to you, who you should meet. And by the way, you may not have interest in every subject, and that's perfectly all right. But you should know what you like to read. It could be any subject, it doesn't really matter. But read. Reading is critical. Read as much as possible. Read about current affairs. Read what happened in the American elections. Keep yourself productively informed. Do not send random forwards. I have a rule for myself. I will not forward a forward unless I am absolutely 100% sure of its accuracy. So be the person whose forward people can forward without thinking twice. So if Dr. Ajay Thomas or Professor Ajay Thomas sends me a forward, I will read it, and I know it's coming from Dr. Thomas, Mr. Thomas, and I know it's correct because Professor Thomas will not send me something which is not accurate. Okay, I'll stop. I think Divya is back. Divya, you should take over. I was just covering up until you got back.
Right. Thanks a lot, Abhinav. I didn't even realize when I got disconnected. I'm not even sure where I stopped, actually. Can someone just tell me where I actually got disconnected? I was just going on for a bit.
You
You
stop.
were talking about just 4 distinct things that are available
Right.
that any law student should care about. So you had just listed the first one. That's all. After that, you got
Right.
disconnected.
Sorry for wasting your time there, everyone. I'm extremely sorry about that. Right. So the first one that I was talking about is preparation. Now, this is the most important step in the initial stage for anything, be it law school, internships, litigation, academia, you name it. It's a sacrosanct. Books have been written about it. Academics, senior advocates swear by it. Now, how should you plan on a study regime? First things first, do not be so hard on yourself. Maintain a doable reading regime to avoid burning out. Let's remember, you're in it for 5 years, and this plan needs to sustain you for the long haul. It would be a problem if you commit to your books for 2 hours a day a month before finals. But it would also be a problem if you commit to 10 hours a day, 5 days since day one of law school. Remember, everything in moderation, coupled with consistency, is the way to go. For the people who've adapted to workout regimes during this lockdown and regular gym fraternity here today, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the most important point in this segment, do not rot learn. You heard me correctly. We are typical products of the CBSE, ICSE boards. We've been conditioned to slog for nights, and you will be inclined just to remember those exact verbatim lines out of a section or an article that helped you in class 10 and 12. Sure, you were told that that's how you're going to get admitted to good colleges, but that will not help you here. Instead, it'll take you back 10 steps. What many forget, and what even some of my batchmates ignored, is that the legal profession demands understanding, analytical skills, listening skills, and basically every skill that comes under the sun that you understand by reading the law, reading things other than but related to the law. You understand, you analyze, and then you advocate. One example is this. I was not happy with the teaching style that some of my professors adopted. That being said, I still am a fan of a lot of faculty that's taught me over the years and made me who I am today. But then there were still some who just made me learn the ingredients of a section and learn the same 4 lines, which were basically the ratio of a judgment to write in an exam. But that sort of instead led me question myself. have a breakdown, question if I'm in the right profession, if I'm in the right law school. Is this how things are done? But that breakdown led me to have a breakthrough. A friend of mine and I, we went to the library and started discussing this subject. This was contract law. I dreaded the subject because I couldn't learn it and it was extremely complicated. I couldn't tell the difference between indemnity and guarantees. That's how ashamed I was. We switched to having bi-weekly discussions in our reading room and discussed why the law is what it is, something that a Socratic method of teaching propagates. But most colleges in India, unfortunately, can just not have that because of the exhaustive and that adamant curriculum. We did the same thing for ADR. And because I loved the subject, I was introduced to Kahneman and Tversky much before I read about these thinkers and their writings extensively at Oxford. So the key takeaway out of this preparation module is that find what makes you passionate about the law. You read about it, you engage in debates, you form study groups, and you sure are to fall in love with the law. And that being said, remember, if you don't like a few subjects, it's absolutely okay. One can just not love both arbitration and criminal law. I mean, that was me. There can be exceptions, I'm sure, but that's the general understanding. But whatever you do, understand the practical uses of what you're reading. How is that section that's bugging you used in practice? What you cannot learn, what you cannot understand, what do you do about it? Do not just stick to Hadley and Baxendale. You move towards how Indian courts use the law in Hadley versus Baxendale. That is when you truly enter the profession. Now, the second module is exploration. So, first is preparation, and second, we explore. I confess, it's easy to talk about finding a passion, but extremely difficult to find one. I took a 2 plus 3 years approach, the first 2 years, to understand and fall in love with the law. Now, that may not be the case for everyone, but I'm sure that you guys went to law school for some other reason than just hating math or being awestruck by the infamous Harvey Specter. Now, the next 3 years I used to answer the question your relatives ask the most: what next? Well, I'm a first generation lawyer, so it's natural that I did not have a godfather in the profession, which, by the way, works wonders. But in the first year itself, I went for an internship hunt and split them into three categories. So the first one being law firms, law chambers. Second, judicial clerkships or internships. Third, NGOs, legal services clinics, commissions, etc. I split them into 1, 2, and then 3 to 5 years. So the first 2 years, I focused only on NGOs, legal services clinics, law chambers, and then saw where truly just the action happened. So I did cover criminal and civil litigation. I covered human rights law, labor laws to an extent, and then switched to law firms and extended my scope to contract law and ADR, company law, by the way, which I hate. But that was that. Once you have carried out these three, you're bound to know what made you the happiest. It is a long drawn process, I agree. But there is, of course, no straitjacket formula as to better know yourself in this profession. An exploration spree since year one is the key. It's well planned, you're always ready, you know when to attack. Now, what also helps many is to dive into the extra co-curriculars in a law school. You have moot courts, you have debates, conferences, essay competitions, MUNs, etc., whatnot. Now, I highly recommend being active in at least two of these to step into the dynamism of law. For instance, students interested in arbitration would be keen on the WIS moot, the WIS Vienna or the Hong Kong moot, and students interested in public international law would or law of the sea are keen on the Jessup Cup. Your extra co-curriculars reflect in your CV as to what really drives you. Most people would just be like, well, we scored well in law school and that's that. Well, that does not work. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for my friends. You have to have something to put you on a different edge. Um, since I had developed an inclination towards contracts and ADR, most of my conferences, publications, moot courts, they circled around it. It is safe to say that you would have an edge over your peers when it comes to knowledge and even the fundamentals to job hunting. A potential recruiter would know that XYZ is actually driven by this. Well, you want a job in uh, well, say capital markets, and you've done fantastically well on company law, etc., and you have 10 publications on India corp law, well, you're hired. But okay, so the next segment is how you keep law and school different. Yes, law school, but this is something, well, not a lot of people will tell you, but this is something I have learned and I'm happy to share it. Now, it's true how it's extremely important to have a study regime, read before our classes, stay prepared for the lectures, question existing jurisprudence, but what you read in law school, it's very different from what's really out there. A cliche tip to enter the profession is this. Well, read the newspaper daily. I'm sure your father, your grandfather, and everyone in your relatives have told you to read the newspaper daily. It is a cliche, but it's worth it. If you can't, well, read a new judgment daily, preferably the Supreme Court or the Delhi High Court or the Bombay High Court. That way, you'll remember that Hadley Baxendale actually happened like hundreds of years ago, and well, we have now Supreme Court talking about Damodar Das and D.K. Gupta and whatnot. But that's the only way to go about it. Know how the law really functions. And that's what makes law different from school. You can't be schooled on law. Question the use of sections that you read in class. If the class doesn't feel comfortable to ask questions or even stupid questions, as you may think, visit your faculty during office hours. Ask them whatever you want. They were students once, they understand your position. If you take my word, they will be more than happy to know that you chose to go that extra mile and actually question what is already out there, a statutory provision, an existing case law, a custom, a practice, because that is exactly what you will be doing when you're a lawyer. And which is why it's very important to rely on your faculty, and definitely keeping a tip of reading a judgment daily is going to make you learn the law and be an expert in well no time. Lastly, I need to speak to you guys about self-care. Now, the rigors of law school are undeniable. Law school has a constant feeling of competition. You're competing with your peers for your class rank, your spots on those prestigious Jessup Cup, and you're competing with countless other law students for internships and job opportunities post graduation. I was once told, applying to a top tier firm, that, well, Divya, we love your CV, but you need to apply a year before the stipulated date. If you want to intern in June 2017, you need to apply to us in June 2016. Well, I was a second year then or third year, and I didn't have that much on a CV. I wouldn't have never gotten that internship. So that's the kind of competition we're facing. We're reading almost 60 subjects in 5 years, and these are law subjects. and God knows with how many bear acts we read over 10 semesters, coupled with managing your nerves with public speaking, learning a completely different writing style, managing the pressure to do well on your finals while you're trying to maintain your relationships with partners, friends, family. And all of this is extremely daunting. Your panel today can attest to that. You're not in it alone. And unfortunately, law students suffer from alcohol, drug abuse, anxiety, depression at worrying rates. For some law students, unfortunately, that ride goes on and probably just takes them away till a PTSD. And while it's hoped that law schools are equally considerate of the students' mental health, it cannot always be expected out of them. The truth is, everyone has a different threshold and has their own different journeys. You will be fighting a different battle than the person who's sitting next to you in class, but they are fighting a battle, no matter what they have under the belt. Now, thus, there's just a few things that you should keep in mind and practice. First, there's a stigma to this profession. You'd be expected to present a sharper edge, but you need to know that it's fine to have down days. You will have good days and you will have bad. It's just life. The worst thing we can do to ourselves is compare us to others. And I know all of us do it. We are all guilty of it. Our friends, our peers, our LinkedIn connections. It's just a matter of habit. It's just social media. Second, substance abuse and peer pressure is unfortunately 100% common in law schools. Maintenance and mindfulness, however, about one's mental health are important for every law student, including those who are relatively healthy at the moment. Learn to say no when you're pressured into falling for such an abuse. When a friend of yours just passes a joint to you, say no. Know your worth. Learn to say no. Peer pressure has been happening since years and years, but that doesn't mean you have to have the same peers. Change your peers. It's better alone and just take a book and read. There's so many books, guys. Third, you'd every now and then see that there will be peers or your friends who will be able to score internships or high paying jobs at top tier firms despite similar or even worse grades than you. And these may be because they have strong family connections and you feel hopeless. But you can't lose hope. This is super common. It's happened to me. And what you need to do is up your networking game and work even harder. And I know Abhinav will be sharing his insights on this networking piece of bit in a while. So I'm not going to take a lot of time on this. Fourth, remember to take some time off for yourself. I cannot overemphasize the need for this. You cannot and need not know everything under the sun. The key to success is working hard and working consistently. And doing all of that, don't skip on spending 1 hour minimum a day doing something you love. It could be running, could be going to the gym, it could be binging on Netflix, going out with a friend, eating some comfort food, spending time with family, anything that helps you relax. I cannot emphasize enough how you need this so badly right now, because once you enter the profession, you will cry about those days when you could actually have done all of that, but you won't have the time. Now, procrastination. All of us are guilty of it, um, but it's okay to every once in a while give yourself that break. Bribe yourself. That's what I used to do. Tell yourself that you'd get to binge on that pending Netflix show once you're done reading, say, 10 judgments on murder. Give in and treat yourself after you pull in that hard work. It's just you, it's your journey, it's your battle. you fight it, and you play it. Focus on one thing at a time. Know one thing. And this is very important, you guys. Deep down, you know what you're capable of. I'm certain there are moments where you've had a glimpse of all the potential that you have. You can and you will get there. You just have to be willing to sacrifice the habits, the things, the situations that are standing in the way of your success. Remember, this isn't just a professional degree. It's a beautiful 5 year long journey. So cherish it, make the most of it, learn. There will be tears, there will be laughs, pressures, wins, losses, but it'll all be worth it when you productively used 5 years alongside maintaining a good health, both physical and mental, and be welcomed to this dynamic and diverse profession. Uh, that's it from my side, and I hope that you guys do pay some heed into this and didn't just just switch on to a webinar and then go off. So thanks.
Now I would request Ms. Akangsha Kumar to kindly give her preliminary remarks.
All right. So, okay, can people hear me?
You're audible, ma'am.
Shobit, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible and your slides are also visible.
All right, perfect. So, I think, and considering I've never met Divya, I think Divya is a woman after my own mind and heart. And there might be slight overlaps, which I'll try to avoid. Also, I'll begin with a caveat. I have never practiced law in my entire life. I never decided to practice law. So all the perspective that I bring to this 12 to 15-minute talk with you all is from my time as a student and then as a continuous learner and now teaching law and as a researcher. So I title my talk as my experiments with and in law school and with law students, because for the last almost 8 years now, I've been living mostly on campus as the warden for the women's hostels and have been in close quarters with students in 5-year law programs and 1-year LLMs. I'd like to begin by telling you about this book. And this is something that I think Abhinav also began with, that read something worthwhile. And this is one of my favorite books. It's about an interaction between a student and his teacher. And there's just something that Mitch Albom, and this is based on true interactions, and Mitch Albom was told by his teacher, Maury, that there are so many people that walk around meaninglessly and they seem half asleep even though they're busy because they're not pursuing things that give them value and meaning. And therefore, you should choose to do things that give value and meaning. And very often I share this with all my students and I tell them at the end of the semester that in spite of all the highs and lows that the semester saw in a class when I'm in the role of an instructor and I have students, what I do still gives me meaning. And I think my time in both my law schools, my undergrad and my master's law school, gave me this, that I need, it helped me choose what I do, and I'm very happy doing what I do. Now, considering that Divya did talk to you about the profession and how you mold 5 years in law school to enter the profession and practice law, so what we perceive as having been productive in law school and therefore successful persons post law school, these examples are our perception of what productivity should look like. So now these are examples from people who I've seen as seniors I idolized in my undergrad law school. So Arvind Vijayan was in the first batch of HNLU. He's an IAS officer now. Pallav Mongia, he was batch 4 of HNLU. Luckily, I was the 2007 intake, so I saw all the senior batches before me that graduated. And Pallav Mongia is currently an AOR. He was the first ever recipient of the Supreme Court Welfare Trust Award given to young practitioners in the Supreme Court. Students currently in law school, especially if you're studying public law, I'm sure you heard of the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. Devanshu Mukherjee was our senior. He's a brilliant, brilliant human being, apart from being a wonderful lawyer and a policy expert. Avni Bansal was my immediate senior. She now currently uh, is entering politics, also along with having completed 2 masters and an MPhil. The rest of the people on the screen are people who were I am very proud to say, were my students. Sandeep Suresh teaches at Jindal Global Law School. Akarshi recently cleared the civil services exams. Nipi Jolly, and this is a very important example that I want you to pay attention to. She's not from an NLU. And in fact, she was the first batch of a law school at that time that was completely unheard of, which was then called the ITM University, now called the North Cap University. Nonetheless, she worked really hard, secured rank 1, got an LLM scholarship, and is now a competition law associate at JSA Gurgaon. So Prieta Suresh was my student at NLU Jodhpur. She was the first Indian student to intern with the ICSID, which is the Investment Dispute Settlement Body. And she was also a recipient of the Young Ika Scholarship to study her master's at the University of Miami. Swapnil Tripathi. Now, those of you again who are reading public law and constitutional law in law school, or are reading legal methods in law school, will have heard of this judgment from about 2 years ago called Swapnil Tripathi versus the Supreme Court of India on allowing interns to visit a live streaming room in the courtroom and live streaming of important Supreme Court judgments. Swapnil Tripathi was my student in my constitutional law classes. This is what we perceive, and I'm not taking away from these people's hard work at all, but this is our perception that this is what success, productivity, and hence success in law school should look like. Now, non-traditionally also, there are options to consider post-law school. These are people who I know or I've taught. Apurva Vishwanath, 2015 RML Lucknow, is now the assistant editor at the Indian Express. She is one of the most brilliant legal journalists that we have in the country. Chaitanya Murali, one of my former students again, decided to move away from the law to pursue a master's in writing and publishing, and is now a game writer, that is a recruitment and content writer at Talent Litmus. Bharati Nakiran, again one of my former students, she decided to move slightly away from the core practice or research in law and got her master's in gender studies and now works as a consultant at the George Institute for Global Health. Nimit Dixit is a junior from my law school. He decided again to leave his very high paying, cushioned tier 1 law firm position to pursue a master's in journalism and is now a legal content analysis with Reuters. Saurish Saha, one of the most interesting students that I've taught in my life, and in fact, he taught me about football, is a research officer with tops in the Sports Authority of India after having got a master's in a postgraduate diploma in football business. That's how passionate he was about football, and he decided to pursue it while in law school and after. Now, these are what productive successes look like. However, did you know that the following people also actually went to law school? However, they are not in the law at all anymore. That doesn't mean that they weren't productive in law school. Neither does this mean that they're not successful. In fact, they are extremely successful in their respective chosen fields. So Nidhi Bisht, Dream Girl fame, has an LLB from the prestigious Jamia Millia Islamia, and she was actually working with Singh and Singh Associates as an IPR attorney. Naveen Richard went to 5-year law school in Christ. Anjali Venugopal, it's a blog that I discovered during lockdown because I enjoy cooking extremely. And I discovered her blog that she has a 5-year LLB from the Symbiosis Pune, and she's now a published chef and does online cooking classes. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of and watched Anubhav Singh Bassi videos about his hostel life and about cheating in law school exams. He's from RML Lucknow. Samir Raichur is a brilliant award-winning photographer, and look at the list of his clients. He's from NLU Jodhpur 2010. Nishat Pai Vaidya, in fact, you can actually tune into his IPL analysis these days. He's a sports anchor. He's from the 2013 batch of NLU Jodhpur. Why I decided to talk about all these people and show you their profiles is to help you understand that traditional metrics of what productivity and success in law school should translate to versus what really law school is about is different for different people. And this is where I would like to give you a disclaimer that in spite of this glowing introduction that was given to me by Professor Shobit, you do not have to emulate me. You do not have to be, you do not have to want to be me and get all those medals. I think and I would like to believe that I am so much more than my medals now. And you shouldn't want to be anybody else, like Divya said. I know it's hard to do, to not compare yourselves with others, but you do you. Therefore, each person has their own hustle, and therefore productivity metrics apply differently to different people. Nonetheless, and I can't harp on this enough, and Divya also said this multiple times, that law school is an entire lifetime that is wrapped and given to you in 5 years. And therefore, there are myriad options of what you do, what you don't, and what you definitely shouldn't be doing. The slides to follow are my experience. So these are the things that I did do. First and foremost, do grades really matter? Now, one of my professors used to tell me that for every question in law, the answer is never a yes or a no. The answer is it depends. So to the answer to this question, do grades really matter, is it depends. Now, it depends on multiple things, one of which is what do you want to do after? A very high grade point does become important if you are from a lesser known law school that doesn't have a reputation abroad and you do wish to apply for your masters. And I think this route towards masters and when to choose masters is something that Abhinav is going to bring up. Grades do matter if you are looking for a tier 1 corporate law firm position. However, grades don't really matter too much if you are moving into private litigation chamber practice. Yes, they do. However, you don't have to kill yourself into getting great grades. For me, getting great grades mattered because I was in a law school that wasn't that well known outside of India. I didn't have enough seniors by the time I wanted to get a master's that had made a name for themselves in a master's program outside of India. And I really wanted to end up in academia. I was lucky, and I know that this is my privilege, to know very early on that I wanted to stick to legal academia, but that doesn't mean I didn't try everything else. Now, the one thing that you are hit with first, the second you join law school, is the sheer number of courses that you have to study, especially because it's an integrated double degree. And this is something Divya did bring up, that we read too much. In law school, the reading load and the study load and the number of subjects that are pushed into one semester are too many. And even in spite of this beautiful sentence that gets attached to every introduction that is given to me, that I got 15 gold medals, I did struggle with interest versus compulsion. In the first 2 years of law school, because I did science in law school, pure sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, the compulsion to study economics and history versus my interests more in contract and dispute resolution and in first semester torts and family law led to me almost failing history and economics. And this is something that J.K. Rowling says. And even though we are very unhappy with her at the moment for her comments on trans persons, nonetheless, her speech at the Harvard commencement is beautiful, where she talks about the fringe benefits of failure. That the first step to any self-improvement activity is to have achievable goals. And there are benefits to failure, because if you live so cautiously that you don't fail at all, you actually have already failed by default. And therefore, in fact, this was one of my biggest learning experiences, having almost failed in eco. The teacher called me after the test and says that, Akangsha Kumar, you have secured double zero mark, because the total marks were 15 and I got 0 out of 15 on a test, because that's how the teacher marked. Since 15 is a 2-digit number, I got 2 zeros. He tells me that doesn't matter, Akangsha, you are meant for greatness. And I think that's the biggest learning from, that was the biggest teaching lesson I got as a potential future teacher. That the teacher in question didn't discourage me at all. And in fact, I was so embarrassed also, yes, and motivated, that the first ever course that I got paid to teach was competition economics to MBA students. So that's how life came full circle for me. That having almost failed eco, the first thing I taught was competition economics. And it doesn't mean that you are bad at law school if you fail. It just means that you weren't interested. Try not to fail. I worked hard after that and didn't fail eventually. And next thing that will then be thrown at you is choosing your honors and elective papers. Considering that I was very highly academically oriented, most of my choices and what I'm going to talk to you about, and what I'm going to be talking about, will be about academic choices. So my honors choices were international trade law honors and intellectual property law honors, because HNLU offered double legal honors at that time. And my elective papers were mostly uh, commercial but not company law related. Like Divya, I hated company law, and that had nothing to do with the teacher. Our teacher was actually really nice. I just didn't have an aptitude for company law. So I decided to choose things that I enjoyed and I liked more. This decision was obviously influenced by previous internships. Now, while again, my grades helped me get internships because I was rank 1. I was lucky to secure the right internships without working too hard. Nonetheless, my previous internships and guidance from seniors, I had also been exposed by my seniors to extra courses to take, and availability of quality senior professors and future plans. All of these factors influenced my choices of honors and elective papers. Now, another thing which Divya stressed on quite a bit is class participation. I really like the law, and I began liking the law early on, because even though my father is not a lawyer, he did study his LLB when I was in class 9 and 10. And I used to read his books, and that's how I got interested. And that's how I wrote all the 11 or 12 entrance exams in my time. I'm pre-CLAT era, that's how old I am. So, uh, and I used to like the law, but law school made me fall in love with the law. And which is why, not with the agenda of trying to challenge the teacher ki aaj to inse sawal puchenge hi, but more because I enjoyed reading about the law so much that I would prep to class. Now, prepared participation doesn't entail not sleeping at all. Prepared participation does entail planning, careful planning. You read what was taught in class that day, and then you read a little bit more about what was taught in class on a particular day and prep for the next. I would do this for every subject. And this also made me start valuing my teachers. And like Divya mentions, there were both positive and negative influences, especially because I wanted to come back to law school and teach. Nonetheless, the learning to value my teachers happened both from the very great professors that I had and also from the not so great professors that I had. And yes, in spite of performing well in my semesters and getting great grades, I went through a major midlife law school crisis, and by the 5th semester, I was panicking because even though I decided that I do want to teach, a lot of the seniors and my own batchmates, they had started panicking about jobs, and I started worrying that since I don't like corporate law, I was never going to get placed and make money. And which is where a lot of my seniors again came to my rescue. And this is where I think Abhinav will talk more about this, that I decided to do all the required internships across the 3+2 or 2+3 plan that Divya talked about, but still decided to make the decision by the time it was my 7th semester to do apply for my master's. And another thing that Divya mentioned, and this is something that I will talk about my own self, that in my pursuit for academic excellence and the very serious academic orientation that I went to law school with, it was very, very isolating because I used to say no. And with the grades, it starts becoming excessively competitive. A lot of jealousy amongst your classmates will creep in, and it can become very lonely at the top. Now, how I coped was that I was part of the dance club and I used to moot, and I was the costume designer for the drama club in the law school. And that's where I made my friends. I have a very select group of friends that have stuck with me through law school. That doesn't mean that I didn't have a social life in law school, but these are friends that I kept close, who understood what I was going through. A lot of my friends came from my junior batch and not my own batch, understandably, because like I said, it is quite lonely at the top sometimes when you're pursuing academic excellence. However, like Divya points out, my personal advice is that instead of being waylaid, it is always better to just do you. And I worked out a lot. I learned yoga and I started learning dhyan, which is meditation, and it's helped me personally quite a bit, in fact. I'm sorry. Now, among with the academics that I was doing, I also did co-curriculars. So a lot of research went into writing and publishing. Just a tip here, I would actually do all my projects myself instead of the cut copy paste work that that I see very often. And that helped because I could get my projects published thereafter, thereby increasing my publications. Now, one of my closest friends, Anubhuti Mishra, she works at PSA currently. She always used to say that mooting is to law school what Quidditch is to Hogwarts. I attempted 3 moots, never won, but I loved mooting. And thereafter, I did a lot of other extracurriculars. Like I said, I tried my hand at debating. I was good at the conventional debating, horrible at parliamentary debates, decided to not do it. I was a part of a lot of law school committees, mostly because, again, of the grades, and then you're forced into committees. So I didn't enjoy my time in the Hall of Residence committee, but I enjoyed my time thoroughly in the moot court committee and in the academic committee. So all of this is something that law school structures anyway offer you, and at least become a part of one initially. If you don't like it after the tenure, don't do it again. I used to be very culturally active even in school. I was the cultural secretary in school, and which is why all of these extracurricular activities went on continuing in law school also. Also, one of the opportunities that presented themselves to me when I was in law school was the opportunity to start the HNLU ILSA chapter, which is the International Law Students Association that hosts the JESUP moot. And I was the first founding chief officer of the HNLU ILSA chapter, because of which I realized how important networking is and how to network and how not to network. And I did all the internships. So I did the NGO. I did 2 NGOs. I did district court, high court. I did a Supreme Court clerkship. I did tax law firm, corporate law firm, 3 tier 1 firms, IPR prosecution, and then decided that my calling lay in teaching and I needed my master's. So I didn't not make an informed opinion. I tried everything. And in fact, I actually enjoyed one of these tier 1 firm internships that I'd done. And Unfortunately, I got my PPO offer after I had said yes to my LLM, and I decided to then just pursue what I planned to. The decision to teach also came from law school. So, like I said, there were a lot of negative teaching influences, because of which, like Divya says, they started deciding to read. Uh, a couple of us in my batch in law school, we decided to start teaching our own batchmates subjects and topics that weren't being covered that well in class, or were outdated in classroom teaching, if I may say so. Then I decided to start the academic mentorship program as a member of the academic committee in law school. I started coaching moot court teams, and all of that, this journey inwards to want to teach and enjoying the entire process, I think is what taught me more and prepared me more for what I wanted to do later in life than uh, academics per se in law school. And also, now this is something that my NUS dean used to say, that you spend so long in law school that sometimes consciously and sometimes subconsciously you end up finding a person who you want to spend the rest of your life with in law school. Now, while peer pressure may also make you want to uh, dip your toe in the pool of wanting to date, I actually never did that. And still, while in the library, I found my partner in law school. And now we're married. So, law school had a lot to offer. It's not as if I was only studying all the time, but that doesn't mean that I didn't work hard or didn't try everything that law school had to offer. However, there were things that I didn't do. I am horrible at sports. So I never played a sport in law school. I didn't try parliamentary debating because I realized during trials that I was horrible at it. I never tried an MUN. This is something that does happen in law school. If you are doing it already while in school, please go ahead and continue in law school. It's a lot of fun if you continue doing it in law school. My law school didn't have exchange programs with any other university at the time. However, as a teacher, I've noticed that exchange programs change you completely and prepare you better for a foreign master's or for an internship outside of India. I never did an additional course or a summer school outside of India while in law school. I only did that after my LLM because I was already in Singapore for my LLM. Nonetheless, now the options are open, even with smaller private schools. If you get a funding opportunity or you can afford it, this is something you should definitely explore while in law school, uh, if the law interests you and continues to interest you. I also never attempted a moot abroad. However, and this is something that I like to say to a lot of my students, that I think I was just better equipped to coach people to send them abroad on a moot instead of going myself. So now I've regularly coached teams that have actually won the FDI moot, stood runners up at the Frankfurt arbitration moot, and won a Mellis Prize at the WIS moot. And I didn't party. And I use the word party euphemistically. Divya's elaborated at length on the number of distractions and the kind of partying that is happening in law schools these days. It's the truth. I didn't, and it's not something that I enjoyed. To be colloquial and use the words that kids these days do, it wasn't my scene ever. It's something that is on offer. Definitely do go ahead and participate in law school gatherings. There are many. We used to have something called salsa night in our law school. We used to have a ball night in which the boys used to come to the girls' hostel and take the girls to the academic block, where we'd set up an entire ballroom. So we used to have fun like that. However, what happens after is something that was never my scene, and I would strongly discourage it. Now, as a teacher for 5-year law programs, this is something that I've observed, and this is something I'd like to tell you. I don't mean to be preachy. I just want to tell you that this is what I've been observing if you want to continue to stay in the law. First, and this is something that Divya also mentioned, There is nothing wrong in seeking academic mentorship. In fact, I strongly encourage it. Your academic mentor can be one senior, a group of seniors, one teacher that is willing to offer said mentorship and is amicable and approachable. And in fact, it is a very good idea to hitch one's wagon to an academic mentor. They'll help you find what you are passionate about instead of imposing their passions on you. Second, must publish if you're continuing to stay in the law, both for a practice or advisory role, or very importantly in academia. And the tip is to publish projects that you work the hardest on, so that you don't have to work more than once for each project. The third thing that I'd like to tell you is that as a teacher, I've observed that any mooting experience, even if it's just once, does look good on a law school CV. So attempt at least one moot. If you like ADR, please try and attempt at least one ADR competition. ADR is when you do out of court, to put it more colloquially, dispute resolution. There are many different forms. All three panelists here have made it their life work to teach, research, talk about, and engage in ADR activity most of the time. So we will continue to advocate for it, and please attempt it before deciding that it's not your mug of coffee. Then, like Divya said, find at least one extra or co-curricular club to join or try when starting law school. Who knows, like with the LSAC chapter, it did lead me to my eventual calling and the academic mentorship that we started. For example, Swapnil Tripathi was lamenting a lot when in law school that there's no constitutional law society in law school. So he started one. He wrote a constitution for the Constitutional Law Society in NLU Jodhpur. So if you don't find what you like doing and you think law school is the place to do it in law school. Create one. Remember, nonetheless, and I know it's easier said than done, try not comparing yourselves with others. Like I said in the beginning, everybody's hustle is not the same. The extreme pressure to perform well at everything takes one nowhere. Soul search, find what makes you happy. And like Divya has been saying, it is okay to want to seek help. Seek help. And try not to get waylaid. This I've said over and over again, but nonetheless, remember to live. Because these 5 years, the experience that 5 years gives you and the relationships that 5 years give you are for life. And most importantly, classes are only fun. Please don't think classes are boring. Classes are fun when the students themselves hold the teacher and the classroom to higher standards. Read, prepare, question, and participate. Fight, but for the right reasons and in the right way. Teaching learning is a two-way process, and I would really like to tell you, especially in the middle of a pandemic, if there are current law students listening, the process of falling in love with the law needs to be equally led. The teacher can only handhold you so far. And if for nothing else, please attend your classes for the BCI rules. Also, especially now, all of us are struggling with the pandemic. All of us are dealing with it differently. Be kind. I know I sound like Ellen when I say that. Be kind and courteous, especially now. And to everybody, to your peers, your seniors, your juniors, your teachers, and to the support staff. Nothing goes wrong if you are kind. And remember, it is okay to not want to remain in the law at the end of 5 years, or even when you go through your mid-law school life crisis. One is not a failure for choosing to follow a different passion that they discover. It's the journey inwards that you undertake in those 5 years that also equally matters. So now my PhD research is a lot about movies and entertainment, and which is why I do this whole copyright appropriation fair use thing towards the end of any presentation that I give. So I would like to tell you this, that 5 saal hai tumhare paas. And I hope everyone listening understands Hindi and knows this movie. शायद तुम्हारी जिंदगी के सबसे खास 5 साल, चाहे तुम अच्छा करो या बुरा, ये 5 साल तुम्हें जिंदगी भर याद रहेंगे। तो कैसे खेलना है, कैसे जीना है ये 5 साल, मैं तुम्हें नहीं बताऊंगी। बस इतना कहूंगी कि जाओ और ये 5 साल जी भर के जीना, क्योंकि इसके बाद आने वाली जिंदगी चाहे कुछ सही हो या ना हो, लाइक दिव्या वाज सेइंग, वंस यू एंटर द प्रोफेशन यू डोंट नो व्हाट्स गोइंग टू हैपन एंड यू विल मिस लॉ स्कूल। चाहे कुछ रहे ना रहे, कंटिन्यू करो लॉ में या छोड़ दो, लेकिन ये 5 साल तुमसे कोई नहीं छीन सकता। क्योंकि मैं जानती हूँ कि अगर ये 5 साल लॉ स्कूल के हर स्टूडेंट ने अपने जिंदगी के सबसे बढ़िया एफर्ट डालकर खेले, तो ये 5 साल खुदा भी तुमसे नहीं वापस मांग सकता। Thank you. Also, I always do a self plug. If you do want to listen to more about why and how I chose legal academia and my experience in legal academia and building a career in legal academia, you may listen to the One Take Show podcast. Thank you so much.
Great. So I now request Mr. Abhinav Bhushan to kindly give us his remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, all lovely words of wisdom. And I am actually now at lots of words of what perhaps I could add to what has already been said by Divya and Akangsha. Uh, when Divya sort of got logged out, I spoke about how not to network. So I'll probably not talk about it, but just give you a very quick executive summary, guys. Don't ask for internships on Instagram and Facebook, especially if you don't need people, don't know those people, uh, or on LinkedIn if you don't know those people. Uh, be very careful when you write anything to a lawyer. I judge people when they write to me. I'm very particular. I'm a grammar Nazi, and as a lawyer, you must be very careful about what you write and how you write. A lot of what you do will depend on how you write and how you present yourself. And therefore, what both Akansha and Divya mentioned, try and write in those 5 years of your law school. It really gives you a lot of training, especially law schools that don't have a very rigorous writing curriculum. And I went to government law college, it doesn't have one. It's very important to train yourself how to write. Start small, but try. You don't need to get yourself published in the Harvard Law Review or any very accomplished journal at the beginning, but soon after you publish, you will get the hang of it. Three, be very responsible what you post on social media. Very, very responsible. This may come back to haunt you later. So use your social media time very carefully. I learned it the hard way because I have wasted rather, an awful amount of time on social media, and I wish I hadn't. Now is your time to not do that. The one thing that I would like to just very briefly speak about is the mental health, and the times that we are living in. It is critical, and I'm very glad that Divya said that as a young sort of lawyer who's just gone into the profession. It is very easy to fall in the trap of anxiety and compare ourselves with others. We are human beings. We do that all the time. I do that. I still do that. But I do that with a sense of some wisdom that I've acquired over the years. We all do it. You could be highly functioning or you could be not so highly functioning, and yet you may have a general anxiety disorder. Everybody has it, especially in the competitive environments that we live in. And therefore, I think the one thing that I tell students when I speak to them now, and whatever I'm telling you, I practice for myself. I talk to people, I talk to my friends. It is very important, I think, in law school to find a mentor. I don't know how to find a mentor, because you just have to find your own mentor, some senior, somebody who you idolize, somebody who you look up to, somebody who's around you, to be able to talk to that person, to be able to talk to you about your fears. Hey, I'm not getting an internship. What do I do? I'm not understanding the subject. Will this really impact my career? And so on and so forth. The small little insecurities, talk to people, find people to be able to talk to. You cannot do this completely by yourself. It is absolutely okay, guys and girls, to be emotionally open about how you're feeling inside, because otherwise you'll just stress out. Um, Find somebody to talk to. And it's perfectly all right to feel lost. It's perfectly all right. No matter what stage of life you're going to be in, you will feel lost. You will question your identity. You will have that self-existential crisis. What's happening with my life? And it's perfectly all right, but just believe in yourself. Keep doing what you are doing. And remember that you will have to accept not everybody is going to be your friend. Not everybody is going to like your guts. Not everybody is going to appreciate your contribution. And that's not your job to be liked by everybody. You just have to continue doing what your job is in the most sincere manner. You will hear criticism. There will be people who won't like you. Doesn't matter. But as long as you're true to the purpose, as long as you're true to your job as a student, as a professional, as a teacher, uh, it's fine. Just be, the integrity of it all is very important. As long as you are uh, integral to yourself, you're fine. Don't do stupid things. Of course, you know, I mean, I'm talking about within the sphere of where you operate. And look, when opportunities will come, they will be scary. They will always be scary. So the most interesting things that will happen to you when you take a chance.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think we lost
Yes.
Abhinav's connection.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, but we
Yes,
can't
you're
see
audible.
you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I think I should be back now. My apologies. Yes. So talk to people. The other thing about LLM in my time, or actually before my time, ordinarily a foreign LLM. I'll just focus on a foreign LLM. It used to be some sort of a gateway to get a job abroad, um, for Indian students especially. And I think after the world's financial crisis and thereafter, you know, that zing that if you do an LLM, you will get a job. I'm sorry to say it's no longer true. So I see a lot of students wanting to do an LLM simply because they want to get a job abroad. And I can tell you there are far more many students who don't get a job than who do get a job. So if you want to do an LLM, yes, please do an LLM. Do it for the academic experience, do it for other experiences, but don't do it solely for the purpose of getting a job, because then all that's going to happen is you're going to meet with disappointment. Also, if you're going to spend 50 lakhs or a crore uh, of your money or your parents' money, as the case may be, then be sincere about it. You know, do it from a university, or rather, don't do it from a university which is not a top university. Uh, how to get into a top university are all those things that Akangsha and Divya spoke about. You need to have a good resume. You need to, you know, your 5 saal that you are spending in your college, agar tumne wo theek se khel liye, then you will get a good university. There is no reason why you wouldn't. And therefore, work backwards. So if you want to do an LLM, start thinking about it as early as you can. Start thinking about it from your first year. Build it up. Build your story up. You are going to be facing an incredible competition when you'll be applying to the top universities like, you know, Oxford, Yale, Harvard, etc., Columbia, as the case may be. And if you really want to get a job, if you want to increase your odds of getting a job, then all that it would matter is that what you've done in your 5 years, what sort of work experience, and how passionate you are about what you do. Remember, if you're good at something, your talent will be acknowledged, but you just have to make yourself good at something. And you don't have to, like Divya said, make yourself good at multiple things. Just make yourself good at one thing and you'd be fine. Whether you're a divorce lawyer, you're a family lawyer, or a criminal, or a arbitration lawyer, or a civil procedure lawyers, if people know that you're good at that one particular subject, there is nothing known as which subject has scope. Every subject has scope. You just need to find your subject and then you're good to go. Especially, you know, when I went to GLC, how I found what I like is in government law college, at least, people start to intern right from the first year. So the classes start at 6:50 in the morning at the time, and the classes used to end by 11:30. And because GLC was located in Churchgate, you have, and you still have the option of interning in law schools, interning in law firms in and around. Some people actually sign their article clerkships under the Bombay Incorporated Law Society. That's very akin to Bombay. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. And they do it from third year onwards. I think you're not allowed to do before that. So they're article clerk under the solicitor, and then they become a solicitor eventually. But this practical experience that people get in by doing internships is also a way to find yourself, what you really like. So I did a corporate law internship. I was like, nah, that's gonna happen. Then ultimately, I found that I was putting in far less effort in arbitration than I was putting in, say, company law, and my result was far better than arbitration law, but with much less effort. So I realized that this thing perhaps comes more naturally to me, and I should pursue it. And then I got absorbed in the litigation arbitration team of Mullah and Mullah. And then I worked for 2 years in Mullah and Mullah, ran from pillar to post in the courts here and there. And then I went to Columbia Law School and I did 28 credits, of which almost 16 or 18 were focused on cross-border litigation, transnational litigation, and arbitration. And today I do arbitration. But this epiphany did not come to me one morning. I mean, I thought and I pushed myself thinking, what is it that I really want to do? And it may happen, it may not happen. But if it doesn't happen, there's nothing to worry about. Just keep thinking about it as to whether you're feeling it or not. The last thing, perhaps before we have also to take questions, is the importance of being well groomed, well dressed, and well read. Okay. Dressing well is a form of good manners, and I can't tell you how important it is to be dressed well. I'm not saying dress expensive, but dress well. Polished shoes, no loose knots, a good dress, ironed clothes. Keep it simple, keep it professional. Your life may not be perfect, but your dress can be. And it does make a difference when you present yourself coming across as a well-groomed person. A career in law is rarely going to be a direct ascent on the top. It is going to be a zigzag. You've chosen it. You're not going to become Harish Salve tomorrow morning. Nobody becomes a Harvey Specter. I hope you don't become Harvey Specters though. So it's going to take time. You have to be patient, and I can say it 1,000 times today. I know it won't come. It has to come over time. But the company that you keep is very important. Okay. When I was in law school, I found myself in the company of those who liked the law as a subject, right? So I would find myself inadvertently in discussions about the law that would make me think. So I don't know if you can do this, but if you can think about it, how to make your company with people who are actually passionate about the law or about things that you do, that might actually take you a long way. Don't say bad things about people. You'll realize over time that you will change as a person, people around you will change as people, and their opinions about each other will change about each other. So people I did not think very well of in my head when I was in first year are my best friends today. Your opinions will change about people. Don't say something which you can't take back. In a profession that you're going to enter, camaraderie is going to take you a long way. Be humble about it. Don't say something which you can't take back. You will realize this when you are in courts and you're talking amongst your peers, that some of the people that you are not good friends with in law school are your best friends in the profession. So give the benefit of doubt to your colleagues and peers. Everybody out there has similar problems that you do. Don't be too judgmental about your friends, colleagues, and seniors. Everybody has their own stuff to deal with. So be more magnanimous in your attitude. Humility will take you a very long way in this profession. These are some of the things I wanted to share with you, and I think we are at 3:26. So perhaps Professor Mohan, should we start with questions?
Yes, sir. So I thank all the panelists for these wonderful pearls of wisdom. We have received a lot of questions, but I have only picked some pertinent questions that I believe would only get to add to what all the panelists have discussed. So one question that we have received from Ms. Manjrekar is spoken English an important skill to have for advocates? Any one of you may take up this question.
Maybe Divya can, or I can take it. Yeah.
Yeah, Akangsha, you can take that. No, not.
Right. See, I don't practice law. However, my husband is a lower court judge. So I will tell you that he didn't speak in fluent English when he joined law school because he didn't study in English for a while in lower classes in school, and he didn't go to a public school for a very long time. However, unfortunately, in our country, if you do wish to practice law, then since the law is written in English and most of the higher courts use English as their language, my understanding is that English is a necessity, however unfortunate it might be. However, if you do wish to appear for the judicial services exams, most of the states in the west and the north of India do their translation exam from English to Hindi and Hindi to English. So if you do speak and write Hindi, it's in fact an added advantage. And that's how my husband, in fact, is now in his batch in the judiciary, in the lower judiciary in the state of Chhattisgarh, the only English and Hindi and Chhattisgarhi speaking judge. So that, in fact, if you are a polyglot, that can in fact help you in practice. But unfortunately, from my understanding, English is important. It is also important to learn the language if you don't know it that well. Most law school offer English language support in the first and the second semester. The BA LLB degree has English as a compulsory subject that you take for credits in law school. So if you aren't fluent in English, there is support in law school from the academic committee. There's an English support cell in a lot of NLUs that I there are language labs in law school, and there will be English support because teaching of the law also happens in English in most law schools in India. I hope that clears it.
I hope the same. The second question is, how should a student manage their extra co-curricular activities along with, let's say, classroom attendance or academia? So I guess maybe Miss Akanksha or Miss Divya would like to take
Let
this up.
Divya take it. She took it so brilliantly in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I think there are two aspects to that question as to how do you maintain your attendance is one, and second is to maintain a good rank along with doing your extra co-curriculars. Sorry, is my voice echoing? Um,
You'd probably need to mute your speakers, ma'am.
is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Certainly.
Thanks. So I think as far as attendance is concerned, there shouldn't be an issue because I understand every college has a system of ODs, which is the official duties, and sort of like a replacement for your attend the classes missed or whatever. So if you miss 4 classes, then you're given an OD. In that every college has a form specified. So I don't think attendance is a big deal. Of course, you'll be missing out on classes and the content that has been taught. So the best idea could be asking a good friend of yours or asking your teacher to give you a feedback or some notes or anything. So you can always, what I used to do is speak to the most brilliant guy in my class, who was also luckily my very good friend, and take the notes from him when I went out for a moot. Gone for 3 days, take the notes, get them copied, and try to read them out. If I didn't understand anything, I would just go to my professors and be like, I was not here, and this is something that I don't understand. It'll be great if you spend some time. And they were very, very happy to do so for me because they knew that I was ready to go that extra mile. So that's always a good way that if you're missing classes, then you can also keep up. And that's the way also to manage your extra co-curriculars, because your law faculty members will always be very, very encouraging and motivating when it comes to extra co-curriculars, because they understand how significant these activities are when you get out of law school. So it's literally like relying on your good friends, good peers, and relying on your faculty, which will actually help you have a very good, in fact, a fabulous culminative experience of your co-curriculars and curriculars. That will go a long way, and you can maintain that position as well, and you can do brilliantly well. uh, Other than that, I don't think that law school would, until unless you're studying for, say, judiciary or UPSC examinations, you do have a lot of extra time on your hand. I used to take my weekends off, not study except for like Saturdays, perhaps, if my exams are coming by. I definitely used to take one day off. And in that one day, I would just probably read something new. I know that I've taken 3 months Sundays worth of time to write 3 papers. So it's always doable because the competition is mad, sure, but at the same time you have good amount of time. There's summer vacations and a brilliant, like, absolutely anything can be done. So it's just about time management and sorting out your priorities.
All right. So the next question flows into it. I was about to ask this question to all the panelists. Are there any pointers, specific tips for time management? How do you manage your time?
Uh, you require time management skills even more so once you graduate from law school, to be honest. So what I do, I'm slightly structured, and I wish I could do this in law school. I have a very structured outlook. I'm echoing. I'm echoing. Um,
Again, sir, you might need to mute your speakers.
yes. So everything that I do goes on my Outlook calendar. I have a sense in the morning as to, I have a list. I know a lot of students who write what they have to achieve in a particular day. Prioritize it, cancel it once you have done it. Something the same day, so they get forward on to the next. But a very clear sort of your calendar and of the things that you need should be there. That will really help in my view.
I guess we'd all do well to heed to this advice. Another question is that is there any key activity that any of the panelists would like to highlight that a law student should definitely do in order to make it very productive? Let's say one key activity. It
Right.
could be same for all of you or different. Miss Akangsha, you want to take it over?
No, I think all of us stressed on reading, writing, and publishing. That's just something that you must do in law school, even if you don't moot. On a practice academic law firm CV, and even though I never ended up moving to a law firm or practicing, I've seen what recruiters look at when they look at CVs as a member of the recruitment committee in Jodhpur, that publications carry a lot of weight. And it's not a tall order, it's not a mammoth ask if we tell you that you must publish, because you're anyway doing projects for your courses. So the courses that you like, especially when you move to electives and honors papers, do a genuinely well done project so that you can get it published. Publications carry a lot of weight on your CV. So if nothing, read more and write is what I would say.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So
well,
please continue.
sorry, I think I would have a different stand on this, as against Abhinav and Akanksha. And I would, like, for me, that one activity has to be mooting, and not like I'm an exceptional mooter or something like that. But why I say this is because there is reading, writing, of course, involved. There's no publishing, of course. But coupled with all of this, there's also speaking, there's also analysis, there's also being you examining you addressing issues, you creating issues, you addressing a bench, and that's where your presence of mind is also tested. So for me, it'll be mooting. You draft issues, you argue them, you're also reading those, you're making submissions, you're writing, you're researching a lot. I know insane amounts of research goes into moots such as the Jessup, WIS, FDI. So, and in fact, even the domestic ones, they need a lot of research. You cannot create an issue without that research and everything. Of course, publications are an incredible way to showcase your interests, definitely so. But I think mooting just adds on to 10 other things on the table. So it'll be mooting for me.
So, if I may just add here, and it's very important because I was the president of the Moot Court Association. I organized 50. I at least must have spoken in 14 different moot court competitions as a lawyer. And I was this vociferous advocate of mooting and how mooting is important in law school. 13 years later, I'm not. And no doubt that you cannot take away the importance of mooting. But at the same time, I realized over time that there are some people who are not litigators. There are some people who are not going to be arguing in the courts, who are better writers and researchers than speakers. You know, they articulate their thoughts better in writing than in speaking. And therefore, I have now started telling people that it's very important to moot, but it is not something that you should lose sleep over if you've not done many moots. Provided, however, a very important proviso is that as long as you've compensated that by writing or by articulating in some other form, and therefore you find a balance. And for somebody like me who's been going to Vienna for the last 12 years every year to arbitrate the Viz, I always tell people if you love arbitration, you cannot not support the Viz movement. But do not be so hard on yourself, as I would just add to people, to students.
Okay,
Right, case
so
in
the
point.
next question is
Loves arbitration, never did the Wismut, sends teams that win.
my next question would be to the women panelists here. So, woman student asks here: are there any specific set of challenges that you, as women, have faced within the law? And if yes, how do you navigate this space?
Akangsha, feel free to go first.
Okay. So I think both our answers will be completely different because of where we are in our respective professional spaces. So while in law school, considering one, like I said, I've been extremely privileged and I recognize my privilege when I say this. I come from an English speaking school. I come from a DBS that helps when you're entering law school with such a cosmopolitan law student crowd. So while in law school, I never felt that being a woman was a handicap, thankfully. However, out of law school, especially when I've entered academia, it's a myth that academics is great for women. It is not. You need to work triply hard, one. Two, as a woman in legal academia, very often I've noticed that students are not very kind to you. They don't take to you very happily. They don't take you as seriously as they would a male professor, especially if you look younger and are more assertive, for want of a better word. So very often, and this is something that I've struggled with for really long, and I continue to as and when I switch between institutions, that getting the students to take a female faculty member seriously and to not discount what they bring to a classroom has been a continuous struggle. What I have done very often is to self-police a little bit. Unfortunately, students' perception as well as administrative perception in law schools where I've taught, barring maybe one, has been to be slightly unkinder to the female faculty with respect to how they present themselves in a classroom. So instead of dressing up, I have begun to dress down, and this is something that I don't particularly enjoy, but this is something that, considering I've been asked about struggles, this is a struggle. Yes. Another thing that I've decided to do is, because I've been dressing down, the content that I deliver has, I've worked triply hard on the content that I deliver in classes. Also, I have become way more relaxed. I used to be way stricter when I was younger and fresher, thinking that if I'm not strict, people will not take me seriously. However, becoming more approachable is a better tactic, is what I have observed. Also, one thing that I have started doing is that as a woman, very often students start thinking you're their friend. And those of you who wish to end up in academia, I would like to tell you that you can be friendly, but students are not friends. And these are the struggles that I've faced as a woman in academia. A couple of places where I worked have not taken me seriously at all, and which is why I've unfortunately had to leave those places. I've been called loud, I've been called brash, I've been called impatient, as euphemistically as possible. However, I've learned to take it in my stride. If I bring quality to my classes, I think I'm doing a good job because my faculty feedback will then speak. Divya.
Thanks, Akangsha. It is unfortunately women in a men's world, but I don't think I think we've made peace with it and we're just like rocking as hard as we can. But at the bar, things I wouldn't say like I like from my knowledge of it, things are relatively and arguably worse because the attacks are not implied, they are direct. For instance, when I was at the Supreme Court working with someone, with a senior advocate a few months ago, um, a gentleman, a senior with an amazing reputation, pointed out to my hair and asked me, well, this is the reason women should not be at the bar because your hair turns white and you're better suited off in academia or as an in-house counsel and nobody's gonna marry you. And I just had a written response just saying that someone who's wise, who understands my profession and my drive for it, would not care about my white hair because that's something I can color, but personalities like yours cannot be colored, no matter what you do. And these things is so I knew this back in law school that joining the bar will be a struggle. It is a gentleman's club after all. But knowing where I was supposed to go, I had prepared myself for it. I knew the struggle that comes with it. I didn't care about people telling me I have white hair or I'm gaining weight, or it just didn't matter. I think a lot of preparation, years of mind conditioning, being mindful about my goals, my aims, has made me strong enough to know my place in this profession. And I think that is something which every woman here would understand because somewhere or the other, be it in school, be it in college, be it in law school, be it in the profession, they have faced some sort of discrimination just because being a woman. In my previous place, I was told, well, we'll see, we'll have you on probation, but you do know that, Supreme Court litigation is hard and women are just known to hold files. And I said, it's going to be different for me. But unfortunately, people don't make it easy. People will talk. I was called haughty of having an Oxford degree, and well, I was never haughty. I worked hard for it, and that's how I was there, and I continue to work hard. And litigation does not pay well, and people know about it, at least for the first 5 years. So I think every woman who's thinking about joining the bar has to be very mindful of what she's entering into. It is a gentleman's club. You will have to rip down that glass ceiling. You will have to. There is no choice. And being a woman just comes with that burden. Men in my life have been understanding enough. Men who are educated, they understand the struggles that women face, and they are extremely supportive. I have had the privilege of having such men in my life, and I think for women it's very important. It can be your father, it can be your partner, it can be your friends, it can be your mentors, and they will tell you that it does not matter. My mentor at Oxford told me, when I was even at Oxford, I was told that, well, I mean, I don't think I should share the details, but there was a sexist comment passed on me, but, and when I shared it with my mentor, he said, you know, you're supposed to be here because you're absolutely bloody brilliant. And to every woman out there in law school, you are bloody brilliant, and that's why you're going to be an amazing lawyer. Or and you can go into academia, you can do whatever you want to do. You just need to prepare your mind for it. That's literally it.
Okay.
Just
So with
as a
that,
as a comment from a man, I just want to
yeah.
say that it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and both what Akansha and Divya said, it is a problem. But I just want to tell students out there that don't generalize the fraternity. There are good people and there are bad people. Do not suppress anything that you think should not happen. Voice it out. Speak to those who draft. Speak to the men in your life. There are more than many men who like women. Don't have a prejudice and raise your voice if you feel something like Divya did and like Akangsha did. You cannot just let it happen. That's all is my suggestion.
Okay, with that, I'd like to request our very own Professor Varsha Vahini, HOD at Faculty of Law, who has more than 22 years of teaching and research experience at various levels. It is always a pleasure to discuss things with her, and I'm more than just sure that you shall also benefit from her pearls of wisdom. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to have the panelists here talking about how to productively use 5-year law school, and I think all the aspects have been covered in these discussion. However, I would like to emphasize on one thing, taking cue from what Divya said, that it's an second aspect, which is exploration. I would like to emphasize on this particular aspect that students should take charge of their learning once they enter the law school. It is self-exploration. They should, attend classes regularly. They should, read on their own, develop reading habits, develop the skills, explore what skills needs to be developed, and then focus on developing those skills. Take lead, take responsibility, and take decisions. Participate in as many activities along with academic activities, other activities also. They should participate and explore what interests them, what is to their liking, what is not giving any benefit to them, or what will give benefit to them. So it's a journey wherein you need to go for self exploration. That's the only point I want to make here before we wind up and before student because it's getting very long and student might get restless and leave the session in between. So, go for it, complete your journey, explore yourself, explore your interest, and, participate in as many activities as you can. And you will definitely come out as, winner, as successful. And successful, being successful is a very, very subjective, definition, very subjective standard, which you can set for yourself and assess yourself. Again, there is no objective definition of being successful. So set your goals, go for your goals and achieve them and be satisfied. So it's another aspect of mental health, that you should not be very anxious comparing yourself, and be satisfied what you are doing and what you are achieving. And with that, is there any other question, Shobit, or should we conclude now?
There are a number of questions, but for paucity of time, I think we should conclude.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I'm here to close the session with my slight giving thanks to the people who have joined us today and who have supported us in organizing this event. This is an opportunity I'm taking to thank our distinguished panel of speakers, Mr. Abhinav Bhushan, who joined us all the way from Singapore, Ms. Akangsha Kumar for her crisp and clinical presentation, and Ms. Divya Bell for sharing her fresh insights and perspectives as a student and now as a trainee lawyer. Shobit, I would like to thank you also, because it's never been easy to be a moderator in these online sessions. I think you did a very excellent job in very efficiently handling the handling and coordinating the session and taking and posing the questions. At the end, I would like to thank LSAC Global. We truly appreciate your support to Manav Rachna University by partnering with us in hosting this webinar. Thank you, Swara. Thank you, Afreen, for your kind assistance and cooperation. And finally, may I take this opportunity to thank all of you who registered and attended this webinar. We greatly appreciate your support to this initiative of Manav Rachna School and LSAC Global. We hope to see you all at one of our future webinars. Stay safe. I hope all of you have an excellent weekend ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.